Good day and welcome to the weekly ADM Agriculture YouTube video. My name is Freddie Humfrey, Head of Trading and Logistics here in the Grain Division. And today we're going to be looking at what's actually become quite an interesting market on the wheat front in the last couple of weeks. We've had a development in some of these weather markets that we've been looking at for quite a long time now, and some of those birds are just starting to come home to roost a little bit. So yeah, very much looking at weather at the moment. We're in peak weather window. We always are at this time of the year, particularly in the northern hemisphere. There are a few challenges going on in the southern hemisphere, but we're going to be mainly focusing on that northern part of the world this video. So first of all, I would just like to start off with saying that there are three main areas of challenge that we're seeing in terms of specifically the wheat crop in the northern hemisphere. The first one, which you can see on the screen, is the US winter wheat crop. The second point that we're going to talk about is Europe and some of the temperatures that we've seen there over the last week to 10 days. And then finally, and probably most importantly, and with the most potential in terms of challenges, is southern Russia and Kazakhstan, which we're going to look at third. So just to start off with, we've got on the screen in front of you, this is straight off the USDA and the winter wheat areas in drought. So what we can see here is the dark green and the light green areas are the major and minor cropping areas for winter wheat. As you can see, I've highlighted it, circled it in red there. Main states in the central and southern belts are under significant drought areas. So those red areas are drought areas. And as we can see, those winter areas in key growing states, the major cropping areas, are seeing drought stress. As a consequence, we saw crops come out of dormancy in the first crop progress report from the USDA in the start of April, really come out at what were very good to excellent ratings in the high 50% mark. However, since then, we've actually seen a degradation of the good to excellent ratings on the winter wheat in the US, and that's primarily because of this drier and warmer weather pattern we've seen in the central south and southwest in the key winter wheat growing areas. Subsequently, that increase in drought exposure to those major cropping areas. We currently see in the most recent crop progress report from Monday this week, winter wheat's at 49% good to excellent, 1% down week on week, and about 6% down in the last 2 weeks. So that winter wheat crop's taking a fair battering at the moment. But when you actually dig into the detail, there's some quite significant downgrades, and I think something like 67% of the total winter wheat area actually dropped by 5% or more on the good to excellent ratings last week. So whilst the overall number is down 1% week on week, there are some bigger downgrades in there in some of the key states. So yeah, one to continue to watch on. We see that weather forecast maintaining that relatively warm and dry window in the southwest versus a wetter and cooler in the northwest, and particularly the corn and soybean belts. So one to continue to watch on, and we're expecting that degradation of winter quality on the wheat side to continue. Moving on, so we've got the end of April map on in front of you for Europe. So we've got the temperature anomaly on the left-hand side, lots of dark blue on that. So the darker the blue, the colder it's been relatively, so that's the temperature anomaly. And then we've got the precipitation forecast on the right hand side. That's from the back end of April, and very much what we've seen facilitate and crystallize this market reaction recently, and as you can see on that left hand map, is significant cold temperatures across the vast majority of the EU, and particularly importantly across Germany and the plains in Poland, and that's certainly caused the market last week and the back end of the week before to just start to add in some risk premium around that. Particularly in Western Europe, we've had a crop that has struggled with significant levels of moisture, too much moisture. We see good to excellent ratings in France being in the mid 60% mark, and certainly lower than they have been for 3 or 4 years at this stage. So a crop that's struggling, has too much moisture on its feet as we come out of dormancy, and then it's had this cold spell, as I said, at the back end of April. Fortunately, that's changed this week, and we move into a warmer pattern. And our suspicion, our expectation is that while that won't have helped that cold weather spell we saw in the back end of April, it won't have significantly detracted from the crop potential in terms of yield on wheat at this stage. It hasn't helped, but the damage is relatively minimal, we think. Moving on, and probably the most significant market in terms of weather that we're seeing is southern Russia and Kazakhstan. You can see there I've highlighted that key neck region of Kazakhstan, between Kazakhstan and Ukraine. That southern Russia area usually produces about 35 million tons of wheat, so circa a third, maybe a touch more than a third of the Russian wheat crop. Obviously, it's the best located in terms of exports, being between the Black and the Caspian Seas there, and so it does have a direct consequence on the significant surplus exportable that Russia has, and therefore available to the world. We've seen this pattern, and this map in front of you is the back end of April, and you can see again temperature anomaly on the left hand side, very different to Europe, significant above normal temperatures. That crop came out of dormancy early because this pattern of above average temperatures has been consistent for probably the last 2 months, and yeah, and then on the right hand side you can see a lack of precipitation, and this pattern between above average temperatures and below normal precipitation is really just starting to hamper the crop. We're seeing some agencies start to talk about potentially lowering their crop production in May, and if this sort of pattern continues, we would very much expect them to do so. And in fact, we saw ICAR reduce their crop from 94 million to 93 million tons total Russian production at the back end of last week. So those agencies already start to talk about it. The market is building in risk premium, and that really supported market appreciation last week in wheat. Slight change this week. We see, as you can see, I've highlighted that same patch, southern Russia, Kazakhstan. We see a slightly more normal temperature, and actually in central and northern Russia, we see colder than normal. But that precipitation on the right-hand side, we see a little bit, and certainly some of that from precipitation has been coming to fruition. We see the Volgograd Basin having something between 6 and 20 millimeters of rain over the last 3 or 4 days, and certainly that will help. But I think that this stage, that is more of a calming of the situation rather than a significant improvement in the situation. So one to really keep an eye on, and certainly when we look at where this crop is going in terms of challenges, there is an opportunity for upside in the next 3 to 4 weeks if these weather situations compound and exaggerate as we go through these key growing stages. So very much we've hit 210 on the NOV24 London wheat contract. That was the overhead key resistance that we highlighted in various reports over the last few weeks. The high from the back end of deck 23 and the start of Jan 24. So we retraced all the way down back up to 210, having bottomed out at 177 on NOV24 London wheat. And very much now we see from a strategic and structural level, 200 to 210 being the window that we're in. If we're going to see these weather markets really exaggerate and start to see some significant crop productions, then 210 is the ticket in terms of the number that we think if that breaks, then we can see a significant move higher. At the moment, we haven't seen that, and we hit it on Friday last week and we pulled back, but just one to keep a really close eye on. There are some weather issues in northern hemisphere in terms of wheat. At the moment, it's probably not one to bank your mortgage on, but certainly keep a very close eye on it in the next 3 to 4 weeks. We think at this stage, 200 to 210 on NOV futures is a good selling opportunity for UK farmers. However, as I say, there is potential here if this weather compounds. So thank you very much for listening. Hope that's been useful. A little bit of a wrap up as to why markets have appreciated over the last week to 10 days, and very much do talk to your farm traders at ADM Agriculture if you want to look at these markets in more earnest. They are interesting. They are probably worth having a look at. Thank you very much for your time.